My brother-in-law assaulted me, bloody face and dislocated shoulder, while my sister said, "You should have signed the mortgage," all because I refused to be their guarantor. I dragged myself to my parents' door begging for help, collapsed, and what happened next even shocked the police. The blow came unexpectedly. A sharp pain tore through my cheek and I flew backwards, hitting the nail table. Nail polish spilled onto the floor, shattering with a clanging sound. Jake stood in front of me with clenched fists, eyes burning with rage. "Are you going to sign it or not?" he wheezed, approaching again. I tried to stand up, but my legs were giving out. The taste of blood on my lips mixed with horror. It was impossible. This was not happening to me, not in my own golden nocturne salon, where I gave women beautiful manicures and pedicures every day and listened to their stories about their children, husbands, and jobs. I opened this salon 5 years ago with borrowed money, working 14 hours a day. Every dollar was hard-earned, every client a treasure. "Jake, stop it!" I yelled, pressing my palm to my swollen cheek. But he was already swinging again. This time his fist hit my shoulder so hard I heard a crack. Pain pierced my entire body, and my shoulder twisted at an unnatural angle. I screamed so loudly that the neighboring store must have heard. "You were supposed to sign the mortgage," Brenda said coldly, standing at the entrance to the salon. My younger sister looked at me with a look on her face as if I were an insect that was making her life miserable. No sympathy, no horror that her husband had just beaten me, just cold anger and some kind of perverse determination. She was wearing a new dress I'd never seen before, gray, expensive, probably costing more than she made in a month at the cosmetics store. "Brenda," I whispered, not believing what I was seeing. "It's nothing personal, Claire. It's just business. We need this house, and you're the only one who can help us." She spoke calmly, as if she were discussing the weather. She didn't seem to be looking at her older sister, who was lying on the floor with a smashed face and a dislocated shoulder. A week ago, it all started with a simple call. Jake called me in the evening, at 9:30, as I was closing the salon and cleaning up after the last client, Mrs. Palmer, who always talked about her grandchildren during the procedure. "Claire, we need a favor," he said in his usual tone, as if he were asking to borrow sugar or help move furniture. "Yes," I replied, wiping the lamps over the nail tables. "We found the perfect house. 3 rooms, a large yard, a perfect place for children. The neighborhood is good, schools are nearby, but the bank required a guarantor with a good credit history." I immediately realized what he was getting at. In my 31 years of life, I have learned to recognize such conversations, especially when they were about Jake Sutton, my sister's husband, a builder with golden hands and big problems. He was a really good specialist. His repairs were always of high quality, but he had one huge problem that Brenda didn't realize. "Jake, I can't do this," I said simply. "Why? You have a perfect credit score. The salon has been running steadily for 5 years. The banks trust you. You know I'll always pay you back." "That's why I can't take any risks," I answered, locking the cash register and turning off the lights above the reception. He was silent for a few seconds. Then his voice grew harsher, with the tone I'd heard when he'd yelled at Brenda. "Claire, this is family. Brenda is your sister. We're not asking for money, just a signature. You don't think we might not pay, do you? Just a signature that binds me to pay the mortgage if you can't. I'll always pay, I swear." "How did you pay for the car 2 years ago? Or how did you pay for the apartment renovation last year? Or for the tools you bought on credit?" Another pause. I knew I had hit the nail on the head. Jake had one big problem: poker. Every night after work, he would go to the Golden Seven, an underground club on the outskirts of the city, and leave half his salary there, sometimes more. Brenda didn't know, at least I thought so. She was always complaining about not having enough money, but she thought it was Jake's low salary. "This is different, Claire. This is our home. This is our future, a place to raise our kids. And my salon is my future. I can't risk what I've spent 5 years building. You know how hard it was for me to open this business. So you refuse to help your family, your own sister?" "I refuse to sign documents that could ruin me." "Claire, don't you understand? If we get the house, everything will change. I'll be able to take on more orders, set up a workshop in the garage. Brenda can quit her job at the store and take care of the house." "Jake, I understand that you want a better life, but I can't." "Even for Brenda? Especially for Brenda. If I lose the salon because of your debts, who will help her when she needs it?" He hung up so abruptly that I flinched. I had hoped that would be the end of it. I was so naive. I remembered the first time I saw Jake. It was 3 years ago at our Aunt Lily's birthday party Brenda had brought him, as if to mention that she had a boyfriend. He was tall, with broad shoulders and calloused laborer's hands. He spoke softly, smiled sincerely, helped clear the table, and talked to all the guests as if he had known them for years. My mom immediately told me in the kitchen, "Brenda has finally found a normal man." Dad also approved. Jake knew about cars and could talk about construction. He seemed to be exactly what my younger sister needed after a series of failed romances with irresponsible boys. In the first months of their relationship, I even envied Brandy. Jake was attentive, romantic, and always had time for her. He gave her flowers for no reason, took her to the lake on weekends, and talked about the future. When they got married after a year and a half of dating, I was happy for my sister. But gradually I began to notice the little things. Jake could disappear for several hours without answering the phone. Sometimes he would come home strange, not drunk, but somehow nervous. Brenda complained that the money was disappearing quickly, even though Jake's salary was good. When I asked my sister about it, she brushed it off. He spends a lot on tools for his work. I found out the truth by accident 6 months ago. I was driving past the Golden Seven, a nondescript bar on the outskirts of town where people said not the most decent people gathered. I saw Jake in the doorway. He was leaving with some men, talking loudly, gesticulating. His face was full of disappointment. I slowed down and saw him pull out his wallet and show it to those men empty. The next days passed quietly. Clients came and went, and I did my work, trying not to think about the conversation with Jake. Brenda didn't call me, which was strange. We usually talked several times a week. I even started to think that maybe they had found another guarantor or changed their minds about buying the house altogether. But yesterday, Brenda called me. Her voice was strange, too lively, as if she was trying to convince herself of something. "Claire, how are you?" she asked. "I'm fine. How are you?" "Great." Jake and I picked out the colors for the walls in the new house. Imagine, the bedroom is going to be a soft blue and the kitchen is going to be yellow. It's like the sun. Brenda. And we're going to have a big garden. I'm going to plant roses and lavender. I've always dreamed of having my own garden. "Sis, the mortgage, I can't afford it." "Don't think about it now," she interrupted me. "Just come to the salon tomorrow. Jake and I want to talk to you." "Why?" "Just talk, like a family." Now, as I lay on the floor of my salon with a busted cheek and dislocated shoulder, I realized how wrong I had been. Jake is not the type to back down easily, and Brenda wasn't the sister I'd imagined. "Stand up," he ordered, wiping his fist on his jeans. "I can't," I wheezed. "It's dislocated." "Stand up or it'll be worse, much worse." I tried to stand up, leaning on my healthy arm. The room swam before my eyes with pain, but I stood up. Jake grabbed me by the collar of my t-shirt and pulled me close. His face was only a few centimeters from mine, and I could smell the beer and cigarettes. "Listen carefully, Claire. I have 2 days to bring the documents with the guarantor's signature to the bank. 2 days. Either we get this house or... "Or what?" I whispered. "Or you'll regret your decision. And not just you. This salon, your reputation, your clients. It could all be gone very quickly." Brenda came closer. For the first time in a long time, I saw something like doubt in her eyes, but it disappeared as quickly as it had appeared. "Jake, maybe you shouldn't threaten—" "Shut up," he interrupted abruptly. "This is about our future, our family, and she only thinks about herself." He pushed me away and I fell again, hitting my back against the wall. The pain in my shoulder was unbearable, and my vision was blurry. 2 days, Claire. Think about it. Very well." They left, leaving me on the floor among the broken bottles of nail polish and scattered tools. I sat there for a few minutes, trying to process what had just happened. Jake had beaten me, in my own salon. My sister stood by and let him do it. I had to go to the hospital. My shoulder was burning with pain, but first to my parents. Mom and Dad had to know what had happened. They had to help me understand what to do next. They always said that family was the most important thing, but that didn't apply to situations where your family beat you, did it? I stood up, holding onto the wall with my healthy arm. My shoulder hung as if it were dead. Blood from my split lip was dripping onto my white t-shirt, leaving red spots. In the mirror above the reception desk, I saw a strange woman with a swollen face, a torn lip, and frantic eyes. It was not Claire Mitchell, the successful salon owner. This was a battered woman who was threatened by her own family. 2 days, I repeated to myself as I walked to my car. My hands were shaking as I tried to put the key in the ignition. But I already knew my answer. Even after all this, even after the blows and threats, never. The road to my parents' house seemed endless. Every pothole caused pain in my shoulder. The steering wheel often fell out of one hand, and I had to drive almost one-handed. The blood stopped bleeding from my lip, but the taste of metal in my mouth did not go away. I tried not to think about what had just happened, focusing only on the road ahead. When I pulled up to the familiar red brick house on Maple Street, my heart started to beat faster. Mom and Dad would help. They always did. When Brenda broke my mom's vase when I was a kid, I took the blame. When bullies picked on me at school, my dad went to talk to the principal. The family always sticks together. That was our unspoken rule. I parked in the driveway and had a hard time getting out of the car. My shoulder was now jerking painfully with every movement, and my head was dizzy with fatigue and stress. Walking to the door, I pressed the bell. Nothing. I repeated it again. Silence. I pulled out my keys. My mom had given Brenda and me a spare set of keys about 5 years ago, in case of emergencies. Well, this is definitely an emergency, I thought with a bitter smile. Opening the door, I called out, "Mom! Dad! It's me! Claire!" Silence. The house was empty. I could feel it immediately. That special sound of emptiness when your footsteps echo differently. I went to the kitchen, where there was a note in my mother's handwriting on the table. "Dear girls, we are going to Rockville for a real estate conference. We'll be back in a week. There is lasagna in the fridge. Kisses, Mom and Dad." Rockville, a neighboring town an hour away. Of course they left just then. I felt the tears coming to my eyes. All I could do was wait for them to return and go to the hospital. I walked to the living room and sank heavily onto the couch. The pain in my shoulder was throbbing and my head was pounding. Maybe I should take some painkillers from my mom's first aid kit. But first I had to call the police. Or no, first to the hospital. I need an x-ray of my shoulder and something for the pain. I closed my eyes for just a second, just to rest, When I woke up, everything was dark. Not the darkness of the evening in the familiar living room of my parents, but something completely different. The air was humid with a taste of dampness. Under my back, I felt a hard surface, not a soft sofa. I felt it with my hand. Concrete. I sat up abruptly, and my head hurt from the sudden movement. Where am I? Gradually, my eyes got used to the darkness, and I began to distinguish the contours around me. A small room with concrete walls. In the corner was an old bedside table with a lamp on it. I reached for the switch. The light illuminated the basement, which I knew very well. It was the basement of my parents' house, but not the technical corner with the boiler and washing machine, but the former playroom of my childhood 15 years ago. My father had set up a small room here. He put an old couch, a nightstand, and wired the light. Brenda and I used to play here on rainy days. Then we grew up, and the room was forgotten. In addition to the childhood furniture, there was now a plastic water canister, a plate of sandwiches, and a bottle of painkillers. My bag from the salon was on the floor. I tried to get up and walk to the door. I pushed. It would not open. I pulled harder. It was locked from the outside. "Hey!" I shouted. "Who's there?" I heard footsteps from upstairs, then up the stairs. The lock clicked, and the door swung open. Jake was standing on the threshold. "Finally awake," he said calmly, coming into the room. "How are you feeling?" "What the hell? Because you need time to think." He sat down on an old couch as if he were at home. "That's very convenient. A week will be enough time for you to process the situation." "Jake, are you crazy? This is kidnapping." "It's helping the family. You fainted on the doorstep. Brenda and I just carried you to safety." "Safe?" I pointed to the locked door. "You locked me in the basement." "Temporarily, until you signed the papers." He pulled a folded paper from his pocket, a bail bond. "It's a simple signature, Claire, and you go home." "Never." Jake sighed heavily, as if I were a naughty child. "Then you'll have to wait. There's food and water, toilet too." He pointed to the corner where there was a baby potty and a hose sink behind an old screen, just like people. "Jake, the paperwork has to be submitted by Friday. It's Tuesday. That's plenty of time." He left, locking the door from the outside. I rushed to it, knocking and screaming, but no one was there. Only the silence of the empty house above my head. I spent the first hours trying to find a way out. I examined every inch of the room. The walls were solid concrete. The doors were solid with metal bars. The only window was small, under the ceiling, with thick metal bars. The light barely made its way through it, which meant it was daytime outside. I tried to make a phone call. I had my cell phone in my bag, but there was no signal. The basement was too deep. The next day, Brenda came over. She brought a bowl of soup and a fresh bottle of water. "How are you, sister?" she asked, as if she was visiting me in a hospital, not in a basement prison. "Do you realize what you're doing? We're helping you make the right decision." She set her plate on the nightstand, avoiding my gaze. "This is our only chance, Claire. It's our dream house. Big kitchen, 3 bedrooms, garden. We've been dreaming about this for so long. And you're willing to kidnap me for this?" "We didn't. What are you doing? What do you call it?" Brenda finally looked me in the eyes. There was no trace of the sister I had known for years. It was a stranger with a cold face. "We're doing what we have to do." "What about Mom and Dad? What do you think they'll say when they find out?" "They won't if you're smart. If you sign the papers, we'll go home. We'll tell them that you were at your friend's house after a stressful day. No one will suspect anything." "And if I don't sign?" Brenda was silent, biting her lip, a habit she had since childhood when she was nervous. "Then we'll have to wait for you to change your mind." "For how long?" "As long as it takes." The third day was the hardest. Jake came twice, in the morning and in the evening, each time with documents and a pen, each time with the same offer. "You're very stubborn, Claire," he said, sitting on the edge of the couch. "But everyone breaks. It's only a matter of time." "I won't break. We'll see." He took out his phone and showed me a photo. "Do you recognize it?" The screen showed my salon, or rather, what was left of it. Broken windows, scattered things, big red letters on the wall. Closed forever. "What did you do?" "Nothing personal. I just reminded them that everything can disappear." My heart sank. 5 years of work, 5 years of building a life from scratch, ruined in one night. "You destroyed my business." "I can rebuild it. Pay for repairs, find new clients, even help with advertising, but only after you sign." I looked at the photo and tears rolled down my cheeks. My salon, my home, my life. "One signature, Claire. One signature and it's all back." "What if you can't pay the mortgage?" "I can." "What about the car? How about the apartment renovations?" "That's different." "How can you be so sure?" Jake laughed, but it was an unpleasant laugh. "Because now I have motivation, serious motivation." On the 4th day, Brenda was the only one who came by. She brought me clean clothes and a warm blanket. The nights in the basement were cold. "Jake told me about the salon," she said, not looking at me. "What do you think of that?" "I think you brought yourself to this. If you had signed it right away, nothing would have happened." "He's destroyed my life, Brenda. He can rebuild it. What if he can't pay the mortgage? I'll lose everything for good." "No, you won't. Jake is not like that. Jake is playing poker with your money. Do you know that?" Brenda stopped in the doorway. "How do you know?" "I saw him at the Golden Seven. He was leaving with an empty wallet." "You're lying. Ask him yourself." She left, slamming the door harder than usual. On the 5th day, Jake came in irritated. "Last day, Claire. Tomorrow I have to hand in the paperwork to the bank. Then do it without me. They won't give you a loan without a guarantor. Find someone else." "There is no one else," he exclaimed, standing up. "I have no other relatives with a good credit history. I don't have any friends who would co-sign for this amount. And that's supposed to make me feel better?" Jake came closer, and I saw something frightening in his eyes. "Sign now, or it will be worse." "Worse than kidnapping and destroying the business?" "Much worse." I didn't sleep much on the 6th day. I was thinking of an escape plan. The window was the only way. It was a small one under the ceiling with bars, but the bars looked old. Maybe if I could find a lever. An old vacuum cleaner in the corner. A metal tube. If you disassemble it and use it as a lever. The 7th day began with a scandal upstairs. I could hear Jake and Brenda's voices, but no words. Then someone slammed the door loudly and drove away in a car. An hour later, Brenda came in. Her eyes were red, as if she'd been crying. "Is it true?" she asked without greeting me. "About what?" "About the poker," I nodded. "How much did he lose?" "I don't know exactly, but it was a lot." Brenda sat down on the couch and cried. I thought we were building a family, a house, a future. But in reality, In reality, he owes serious people. The house is a way to hide the property from them. What? If I put the house in my name and you as a guarantor, then technically Jake will have nothing to do with it. The creditors won't be able to take it away. Oh my God. And when everything calms down, he'll sign the house over to himself. Only then did I learn the truth. Brenda wiped her eyes and looked at me. I'm sorry, Claire. I thought we were doing the right thing. Let me out. I can't. Jake has the keys. He went to the bank, last chance to find another bail bondsman. When's he coming back? Tonight. This was my opportunity, my only opportunity. After Brenda left, I got to work. I took apart the old vacuum cleaner and pulled out the metal tube. I moved the bedside table under the window and climbed on it. The bars were really old. The fasteners were rusty. She inserted the tube between the bars and the wall and began to loosen it. The metal creaked and cement crumbs fell to the floor. Another effort. Another one. One fastener gave way, then the second one. The bars tilted, creating a gap. Narrow, but enough to get through. I stuck my head out. The window overlooked the backyard, at ground level. The door of my parents' house was about 50 meters away through the grass. I squeezed through the window. It was narrow, very narrow. The edges of the metal scratched my skin and tore my clothes. But I got through. Once outside, I felt dizzy from the fresh air and sunlight. A week in the basement had done its job. I had to get to the door of the house and call the police before Jake returned. It was my only chance. I ran across the yard to the door, feeling my heart pounding with fear and hope at the same time. I was finally free. Running to the door of the house was much more difficult than I had expected. 50 meters seemed like kilometers when every step was painful. A week in the basement had made my legs weak, and crawling through a narrow window with bars, I seriously scratched my left leg on the sharp edge of the metal. Blood was oozing through my torn jeans, but adrenaline was still drowning out the pain. Getting to the front door of the house was only half the battle. I had to find a phone and call the police before Jake returned. I didn't know how much time I had, but I hoped he'd be at the bank for a long time looking for an alternative bail bondsman. My hand trembled as I dialed 911 on the landline in the hallway. Emergency services, this is the police. Hello? I need the police. My voice sounded hoarse after a week in the damp basement. Please state your address and briefly describe the situation. Maple Street, number 37. I was kidnapped and held in a basement for a week. I just escaped. Stay put, a patrol car will be here in 10 minutes. 10 minutes. A long 10 minutes, during which I sat by the living room window watching the road. Every sound of a car engine made my heart beat faster. What if Jake came back early? What if he sees the patrol car and runs away? Then it would be my word against his, and who would believe me? The police arrived exactly 10 minutes later. 2 officers, a middle-aged man with graying temples and a young woman with a short haircut. They asked the standard questions, looked around the basement, took pictures of the widened window with bars and my scratched leg. Where are the people who were holding you now? The older officer asked, taking notes of my statement. He should be back this evening. Brenda, I don't know where she is. Do your parents know about the situation? No, they're on a business trip in Rockville. They'll be back tomorrow. We'll contact them. In the meantime, you need to go to the hospital to have your leg checked out. At the hospital, they treated my wounds and took pictures of my shoulder. It still hurt after the dislocation a week ago. The doctor, an elderly man with kind eyes, shook his head, looking at the fresh bruises on my wrists from the metal bars. Young lady, you have been through a serious ordeal. You need rest and time to recover. I'm fine. Physically, maybe. But psychologically, such things leave a mark. I advise you to see a psychologist. I just nodded. The psychologist was the least of my problems. The main thing was to prove Jake's guilt in court and somehow restore the salon. The next day began with a phone call. Mom. Claire, what kind of nonsense are the police saying? My voice was tense, anxious. Jake beat me up and then kept me and Brenda in the basement for a week. Jake is such a nice guy. A nice guy wouldn't beat me. Maybe you misunderstood something. Maybe there was a mistake? I felt something cold clench in my chest. Without even seeing me, without hearing me out, my mom was already looking for an explanation that would justify Jake. Mom, I want you and Dad to come home. We need to talk. We're on our way now. My parents arrived 3 hours later. I waited for them at my house. The police had advised me not to stay in the house on Clenova Street while Jake was at large. When they entered my apartment, their faces were gloomy. Mom, usually slim and tidy, looked tired. Her hair was unkempt, her clothes crumpled from the road. Dad was tense, avoiding direct eye contact. "Show us everything from the beginning," Mom said, sitting down on the couch. I told them everything, from Jake's first call about the bail bond to the escape from the basement. I showed her the photos of the destroyed salon on my phone. I showed the scratches from the bars on my leg that hadn't healed yet. Mom listened, occasionally covering her mouth with her palm. Dad was silent, looking at the floor. "That's terrible," Mom finally said. "But are you sure that's what happened?" "What do you mean?" "Well, maybe you fainted from stress and they just wanted to help you." "Help? By locking me in the basement for a week? Maybe they were afraid you'd do something to yourself." I looked at my mom and did not recognize my own mother. She was a stranger trying to justify the impossible. "Mom, did you hear what I said? Jake beat me up. He dislocated my shoulder. We don't know for sure about the salon yet." "I showed you the photos. Photos can be faked." Dad finally spoke. "Claire, these are very serious accusations. If you're wrong, I'm not wrong. But if you're wrong, you'll ruin Brenda's life. They've just gotten married, they're starting a family. Doesn't my life matter?" My parents looked at each other. "Of course it matters," my mother said. "But Brenda is younger, she needs more support." "More support when her husband beats people?" "Don't say that," Dad said sharply. "Jake is a good boy. He's a hardworking, decent guy. Who beat up your eldest daughter? We don't know all the circumstances." Baz. I got up from the couch. What other circumstances could justify what he did? "Claire," my mom said softly, "think about your family. We've always stuck together. We've always helped each other. We have. And now, when I need help, you're telling me to think about my family? If you file a police report, it will split our family forever. Jake split the family when he decided to beat me." Dad sighed heavily. "Daughter, I understand that this is hard for you, but maybe it's better to leave it at that. People make up, it will be forgotten." "Forgotten?" I pointed to my scratched leg. "It'll heal," Mom said. "It'll heal if you give it time." "What if Jake hits someone again? What if it's Brenda next time?" "That won't happen." "How do you know?" Mom stood up and came to me. "Claire, please, don't destroy your family for revenge. It's not revenge. It's justice." "Justice? Is it fair to leave Brenda without a husband? Is it fair to send Jake to prison for one mistake?" "One mistake? He beat me up, kept me in the basement for a week, destroyed my business. Maybe he just overreacted to protect his family." I looked at my parents and realized that they had already made their choice, and this choice was not in my favor. 31 years of their care, support, and love disappeared in 1 minute. When they had to choose between their daughters, they chose the younger one. "Okay," I said quietly. "I understand." "Does this mean you're not going to apply?" my mother asked hopefully. "It means I've realized who I can count on and who I can't." The next morning, I went to the police and wrote an official statement about the beating, illegal imprisonment, and destruction of property. The officer who took the statement warned me, "The case will be difficult. A week has passed, and the physical evidence has almost disappeared. You'll need witnesses. And if the witnesses refuse to cooperate, then it will depend on your word against theirs." Jake was arrested the same day. Brenda called me that evening. She was crying. "Claire, why did you do this?" "To make him answer for what he did. He didn't mean to hurt you. He was very worried about our future." "And that justifies beating you?" "No, but not to the same extent. Prison, court, you're ruining his life." "Brenda, he kept me in the basement for a week, sitting on the cold concrete, eating sandwiches, wondering if I'd ever see sunlight again." "But he didn't mean to kill you. Do you know that for a fact?" "You're my sister," she finally said. "How could you do this to me?" "I didn't do anything to you. I filed a report against the man who beat me." "In my eyes, you betrayed your family." She hung up the phone. That was the last time we spoke before the trial. The trial was scheduled for March, 3 months after I filed the case. During this time, I tried to reopen the salon, but it turned out that the landlord had already rented the premises to someone else. I had the funds for a new establishment, but it was difficult to find a good place. My parents did not communicate with me all this time, not a single call, not a single meeting. On New Year's Eve, I received a standard card with no personal wishes. On my birthday, nothing. The court hearing began with Jake categorically denying all charges. His lawyer, a young man in an expensive suit, based his defense on the fact that there was no evidence of violence. "Your Honor," he said, "my client was stressed because of business problems. The Sutton couple were only trying to help her by taking her off the street in an unconscious state and providing her with shelter." "What about the locked door?" the judge asked. "They were afraid that in her condition she might harm herself." "And the destroyed salon?" "My client has no evidence that Mr. Sutton caused the damage to the premises." That was true. The police had found signs of forced entry, but there was no evidence of Jake's involvement. The photo on his phone? He could have taken it after the break-in, just walking by. When they called Brenda to the stand, my heart sank. She looked pale and thin, as if she had been sick for months. "Tell the court what happened that day," the judge asked her. "We went to my sister's salon to talk about the bail bond. She was very nervous, screaming, behaving aggressively. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Then she suddenly started falling, and Jake caught her. We decided to take her to her parents' house to calm her down." "Why did you lock the basement door?" "So she wouldn't do anything bad to herself. She said strange things, that life had no meaning." Every word Brenda said was like a knife. My own sister lied in court to save her husband. When it came to my testimony, I told the truth, the whole truth. About the call, about the beating, about the week in the basement, about the threats and the destruction of the salon. Jake's lawyer asked questions, trying to find contradictions. "You claim that Mr. Sutton beat you, but the doctor's report only shows scratches from a fall and an old, dislocated shoulder. The bruises faded in a week." Convenient. "Did you have any witnesses to the beating?" There was Brenda. "Who denies what you said?" The trial lasted 2 days. At the end of it, the judge announced, "The case of Ms. Mitchell versus Mr. Sutton. The court finds that the evidence presented by the prosecution is insufficient to prove the defendant's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Mr. Sutton is acquitted of all charges." I sat in the courtroom and watched Jake hug Brenda and his lawyer. They looked happy, they looked victorious, and I was alone, all alone. When I left the courthouse, I saw my parents. They were standing at the entrance waiting for Brenda and Jake. When I approached, my mother looked at me coldly. "I hope you're satisfied now." "What?" "For 3 months you tormented this family with false accusations. Now the court has proved you wrong." "Mom, I don't have a daughter who could do this to her own sister," Mom said and turned away. Dad was silent, but I read the same thing in his eyes. I stood on the steps of the court and watched my family walk away. Without me. Forever without me. Justice had been done. Only justice was not on my side. A year after the trial passed so quietly that I began to believe that the worst was over. I managed to open a new salon on Park Street, in the historic center of the city. The room was smaller than the previous one, but cozy and bright. A large window overlooked a small square with a fountain, and clients often said that it had a pleasant atmosphere. Customers came back gradually. At first there were just a few regulars, Mrs. Palmer with her stories about her grandchildren, Jennifer, who always asked for a French manicure, and Sarah, a young mother who came every 2 weeks as a date with her. Then new ones came. Word of mouth worked better than any advertising. I learned to live alone. I won't lie. It was hard at first. In the first months, I waited every day for a call from my mom or dad, at least a short message from Brenda, but the phone was silent. On my birthday, I received a card from my Aunt Lily, the only other relative who still communicated with me. The card read, "Dear Claire, I know this is a difficult time. Remember that the truth always comes out. I love you, Aunt Lily." Every Sunday, I went to the cemetery to visit Grandma Rose's grave. It was peaceful there, and I could talk out loud about things I couldn't share with anyone. My grandmother always said, "Claire, the most important thing is to be yourself, no matter what happens." Now these words have become my motto. Gradually, new habits emerged. Morning coffee at the bistro on the corner, where Marco, the owner, was always interested in business. Evening walks along the waterfront with audiobooks in the headphones. Painting classes on Saturdays were a small hobby, but they helped me relax. Most importantly, I found a good lawyer. Kyle Morris was a middle-aged lawyer with sad brown eyes and a habit of rubbing his pen while thinking. He represented me at my first trial, and, although we lost, he said afterwards, "Claire, I've rarely seen a case so obvious with such a bad outcome. If Jake Sutton does something like that again, we'll get him. And if he doesn't? People like that don't change. They only become more cautious." It was on Kyle's advice that I installed a hidden video surveillance system with sound recording in my new apartment. Not in the way they usually do, to scare thieves with open cameras. On the contrary, the cameras were almost invisible, mounted in photo frames and clocks on the wall. Most people put cameras up to deter crime, but sometimes it's better to let the criminal make a mistake and record it. If he comes back, Kyle explained, we'll have irrefutable evidence, video, sound, everything we need to prosecute. And if he doesn't come back, then you'll live in peace, and that's not bad either. I lived in peace for 8 months. The salon flourished, the apartment became a real home, and I made a few friends among my clients. I even started going on dates with Thomas, an engineer I met in a bookstore. It was nothing serious, but it was nice to feel like an ordinary woman, not a victim of family drama. The nightmare returned on a cold February evening. I was preparing dinner, nothing complicated, just pasta with sauce, when I heard a knock at the door. I looked through the peephole and saw a delivery man holding a box and wearing a cap with the logo of a delivery service. "Who is it?" "Delivery for Claire Mitchell." I hadn't ordered anything, but sometimes clients sent gifts. She opened the door to the length of the chain. Jake pushed the door open with his shoulder. "Surprise," he said, entering the apartment. He had a gun in his hand. Not a toy gun, but a real heavy revolver glistening in the light of the chandelier. My heart sank. "Jake, what are you doing?" I asked, finishing the conversation we hadn't finished a year ago. He closed the door and turned the lock. Keeping his distance, he walked deeper into the apartment, keeping the gun pointed in my direction. "Sit down," he ordered, pointing to the couch. I sat down, trying to think. Where is the nearest camera? One was in a frame on the coffee table, the other in a clock on the wall. Both were supposed to record sound and images. The key is to speak loud and clear. "What do you want, Jake?" "The same thing I did a year ago, a bail bond." "But the court proved you were a liar," he said with a smile. "Now the whole town knows that Claire Mitchell makes up stories about her family members." He came closer, and I saw that he had changed in the past year. He lost weight, his face became sharper, and something frightening appeared in his eyes. "You see, after the trial, I thought the problem was solved, but it turned out that the people to whom I owe money don't really care about court decisions." "Oh? To whom?" "To different people. Serious people. People who don't like to wait." He sat down in the chair opposite me, holding the gun on his knee. "The original plan didn't work. We didn't buy the house. I couldn't hide the money. Now I have a new plan." "What is it?" "You're going to sign the documents for a big loan. $500,000. That'll be enough to pay off all of our debts." "Jake, I could never pay back that kind of money. You won't have to. A month after I get the loan, I'll have an accident, a pretend accident. And you'll go to the insurance company as Brenda's widow." "As a widow?" Jake smiled, but it was cold. "Brenda will have an accident too, a car accident. Very sad, a young couple died together." I looked at him and couldn't believe it. This was not the Jake I knew 3 years ago. It was someone else, devastated, desperate, ready to do anything. "You want to kill Brenda, your own wife?" "I don't want to. I have to. She's become a liability. Besides, she started asking too many questions about money." "Jake, this is crazy." "This is survival," he shouted, raising the gun. "Do you think I want to do this? Do you think I like threatening with a gun?" His hand was shaking, his eyes were red. "But I have no choice. If I don't give them the money by the end of the month, they'll kill me. And before that, they will torture me for a long time. Do you understand that?" I nodded, trying to reassure him. "I do. But there are other ways." "What are they? Go to the police? Testify against people who will kill me for this? Or run away? Where? With what? I have nothing but debts." He stood up and started walking around the room. "You know what's worse? Brenda doesn't even know about the debt. She thinks I'm just worried about my job. When I told her about the loan, she said, 'Why don't we try to start over in another city? Maybe that's a good idea.'" "What money?" He stopped and looked at me. "Claire, listen to me carefully. I have a plan that will save me and give you the opportunity to start a new life with the insurance money. Or I have a gun, and then we all die right now. It's your choice. I looked into his eyes and realized he wasn't bluffing. Desperation had driven him to the point where he was ready for anything. How much time do I have to think about it? A minute. A minute? Jake, this is a decision for life. You have 30 seconds. 29, 28. Okay? I shouted. Okay, I'll sign it. Jake lowered the gun and smiled. He pulled a folded paper out of his pocket. Here are loan applications from 3 different banks. You sign them tomorrow morning, and tonight Brenda and I are going on a romantic trip. Jake, if you really do this, everyone will know the truth. The police are investigating, and what will they find? An accident. A young couple was driving too fast on a slippery road. It's sad, but it happens every day. He put the papers on the coffee table. And if someone suspects insurance fraud, the suspicion will fall on the widowed sister, who will receive the money, and you. And everyone remembers how you lied about me in court. You've thought this through. I had to. When your life is at stake, you think fast. He stood up and walked to the door. Tomorrow morning at 9, you have to be at the First National Bank. At 10, at the Citibank. At 11, at Union Credit. You sign all the documents, complete all the procedures. And then you forget this conversation. A month later, you get the insurance money and live happily ever after. Jake opened the door, but turned around on the threshold. Claire, if you try to deceive me or go to the police, you'll die first. And it won't be a quick death. Is that clear? Clear, I whispered. The door closed. I sat on the couch for a few more minutes, listening to him walk down the stairs. Then I ran to the phone and dialed Kyle Morris's number. Kyle, it's Claire. I'm sorry to call you so late, but I need your help. What is it? Jake Sutton just left me. He had a gun. He threatened to kill me and Brenda if I didn't sign the loan papers. And the cameras caught all of this? I hope so. Then we caught him. Kyle and I spent the next 2 hours reviewing the footage. The quality was excellent. You could see every detail, hear every word. Jake had sentenced himself to death by telling us about his plans to kill his wife. That's more than enough, Kyle said. I'll call Detective Browns now. Jake will be arrested tonight. What about Brenda? He could hurt her. The police will protect her. Jake was arrested at 4 in the morning in his apartment. Brenda was sleeping next to him and woke up to the sound of officers kicking in the door. Later, I was told that she could not believe what was happening. The trial lasted only 1 day this time. The camera footage was irrefutable evidence. Jake tried to deny it, but his own words were coming out of the courtroom speakers. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison for threatening with a weapon, attempted fraud, and planning a murder. When the verdict was announced, Brenda stood up from the bench and looked at me with such hatred that it made me feel cold. You destroyed my life, she said loudly for everyone to hear, and both times with pleasure. Brenda, don't tell me anything. Never. I don't have a sister anymore. She left, and those were the last words we exchanged. My parents took her side again. My mom called me in the evening. Claire, wasn't it enough for you to destroy the family once? He wanted to kill Brenda. He was desperate. People say things when they're desperate. He was holding a gun. Maybe he didn't mean to use it. I hung up the phone. I realized that my parents would never admit the truth. For them, I will always be the one who splits the family. From that day on, we stopped communicating completely. There were no formal greetings on holidays, but I had irrefutable evidence. I had the truth. And this time, the truth won. 2 years after the second trial passed faster than I expected. Life got into a rut. Not the painful rut where I was constantly looking over my shoulder, but a new, calm, predictable one. The salon on Park Street was booming, with so many clients that I had to hire an assistant, Miranda, a young girl from art college who did incredible nail designs. I started dating Kyle officially 6 months after the trial. At first it was just lunches and talking about business, then movies and walks. Nothing dramatic, no passion from the first meeting. Just a calm, gradual approach between two people who understand each other. You know, he said one evening as we sat on the terrace of his house with wine and watched the sunset, I never thought I would date a former client. And I didn't think I'd be dating the lawyer who lost my first case. Hey, I won the second one. Only because we had video evidence. We had a good laugh. For 2 years, I learned to laugh at things that used to cause me only pain. Kyle was different from all the men I had dated. Calm, predictable, reliable. After years of drama, it was like cool water in the heat. He didn't promise stars from the sky, didn't shower me with gifts, didn't talk about eternal love. He was just there when I needed him and gave me space when I wanted to be alone. Are you thinking about moving? He asked me one day at breakfast. Why do you ask? It just seems like you have too many hard memories here. Sometimes it's good to start from scratch. I thought about what you said. Indeed, every corner of this city reminded me of something unpleasant. My parents' house on Clenova Street, where I was kept in the basement, the old salon that Jake destroyed, the courtroom where Brenda lied under oath, even this house where he came with a gun. Will you come with me? I asked. If you want to. I do. That's how we ended up in Middleton, a town 2 hours south. A small, cozy place with a historic center and a university. Kyle transferred his law practice without any problems, and I opened a new salon, Flower Touch, in the heart of the old neighborhood. No one here knew my story. I was just Claire Mitchell, the owner of a beauty salon, doing beautiful manicures and listening to the stories of her clients. No one looked at me with pity or judgment. No one whispered behind our backs about that woman who condemned her son-in-law. We rarely talked to our parents, maybe once a year, on Christmas or their birthday. Briefly, discreetly, without mentioning the past. My mom sometimes sent postcards with neutral wishes. Dad didn't call at all. With Brenda, there was silence. Complete, soundless silence for the 4th year in a row. I got used to it. I learned how to live without a family, creating a new one with Kyle. Clients who became friends, neighbors. Family is not always about blood. Sometimes it's the people who choose you every day. One rainy Thursday in October, I received a call from my Aunt Lily. Claire, dear, how are you? I'm fine, Auntie. I'm fine, but that's not what I'm calling about. Something weird happened to Brenda. I stopped breathing. What happened? A woman came to see her with a baby. Young, beautiful. She said she had something to do with Jake Sutton. So? Claire, the kid looks like Jake like clockwork. A boy about 2 years old with the same dark eyes and curly hair. The woman said her name was Ashley Turner. She said that Jake had promised to marry her after he divorced Brenda. He promised to buy them a house and officially recognize their son. Claire, are you there? Yes, Auntie. And what did Brenda say? At first she didn't believe it. And then this Ashley showed me photos, letters, messages. It turns out they had been dating for 2 years before he was arrested. Jake told her that he was only formally married, that he was waiting for a divorce. And the child is really his? It seems so. Ashley brought over the papers that listed Jake as the father. I sat down heavily on the chair at the reception desk. How did Brenda take it? Badly, really bad. She cried for 3 days straight. Then she went to the prison to talk to Jake. And what did he say? He admitted it. He said he did date Ashley, that the baby was his, but he said he hadn't planned on leaving Brenda. Of course he didn't. Claire, I know you and Brenda have a complicated relationship, but she's all alone right now. Your parents keep telling you that it's just a temporary thing. Aunt, what do you want me to do? I don't know. I just thought you should know. In the evening, I told Kyle everything. He listened in silence, nodding occasionally. How do you feel? He asked when I finished. I don't know. On the one hand, I feel sorry for Brenda. On the other hand, she made her own choice 4 years ago. And now she knows the truth. Now she knows part of the truth. About the mistress and the child. But she still won't admit that I was right about Jake all along. Kyle took my hand. You don't have to save her, Claire, I know, but if you want to talk to her, I'll support you. I thought about it for a few days. In the end, I decided not to do anything. If Brenda wants to talk, she knows where to find me. If not, that's her choice too. The call never came. A month later, Aunt Lily called again. Brenda has filed for divorce, she said without preamble. Finally. She's selling the apartment, going to move to another state, says she wants to start a new life away from all this. And her parents? They're trying to talk her out of it. They say she shouldn't make hasty decisions. I laughed, bitterly, but I laughed nonetheless. Of course they are. Claire, why don't you try to talk to her? Aunt, I wrote her a letter 3 years ago. I called her 2 years ago on her birthday. She didn't answer. If she wants to get back together, she has to make the move. And if she doesn't, then she won't. I can't force a person to love me or trust me. That was the truth. Over the years, I realized that you cannot force people to be family. Either they want you in their lives or they don't. Forcing only creates resentment. Another year passed. Brenda moved to California, 3,000 kilometers away. Aunt Lily sometimes sent news that Brenda had gotten a job in a travel agency, rented a small apartment, and started going to psychotherapy. She said she finally began to realize how much she was wrong, my aunt said. But she also said she was too embarrassed to call you. Ashamed? She said she didn't know how to apologize for what she had done for so many years. I understood Brenda. Sometimes apologizing is much harder than continuing to be at odds. But I wasn't going to take the first step, not after everything that had happened. Life went on. The salon expanded, and I had to hire another nail technician. Kyle asked me to marry him, a quiet, modest proposal during a walk in the park. I said yes, and we got married in a small circle of friends. None of my blood family came to the wedding, but there were people who truly loved and supported me. One sunny Tuesday, a new client came into the salon. She was a woman in her 40s with tired eyes and expensive clothes. "I need a manicure," she said, "something calming. I have an important conversation coming up." "Of course, please sit down." While I was preparing the tools, she told me, "I have a conflict with my sister. We haven't spoken for 2 years." "I understand," I said, not looking up. "The thing is, I was wrong. Very wrong. But I don't know how to fix it." I started to work on her nails. "What happened, if you don't mind me asking?" "My husband did something bad. Very bad. But instead of supporting him, I blamed my sister. I said she was lying, that she wanted to destroy my family. My breath caught in my throat. It was impossible. But... And then it turned out that my sister was telling the truth. My husband really was..." She paused, searching for words. "He was not the person I thought he was." I looked up and looked at her face. Older, tired, but still recognizable. "Brenda?" I whispered. She nodded, and tears rolled down her cheeks. "Hi, Claire." We were silent for a few minutes. I continued to do her nails, and she cried softly. "I came to ask for forgiveness," Brenda finally said. "I know I don't deserve it. I know that I did terrible things to you. Brenda, let me finish, please. I've been blind for years, or didn't want to see the truth. You saved me from a man who could have killed me, and I blamed you for destroying my family." I finished with one hand and started with the other. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she continued. "I just wanted to tell you that you were right, about everything, and that I'm sorry. Very, very sorry." "Where do you live now?" I asked. "In San Diego. I work in a travel agency. It's nothing special, but it's an honest job." How did she know where I was? "Aunt Lily. She told me the name of the town, and I found your salon on the internet. I finished my manicure and moved away." "It's beautiful," Brenda said, looking at her nails. "You've always been a master." "Brenda, why did you come? The real reason." She looked me in the eye. "Because I want to have a sister again. I want to try to rebuild what I destroyed. If you give me a chance." I thought about all these years, the pain, the hurt, the loneliness, about how long I had been waiting for those words. And now, when they came, I felt devastation, not joy, not relief. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe it's too late." "Maybe," Brenda agreed. "But I want to try, even if it's long and hard." "And your parents, do they know you're here?" "No, and I'm not going to tell them until you and I have worked things out." I nodded. "Where are you staying?" "A hotel on Main Street." "How long do you plan to stay?" "As long as it takes, or until you tell me to leave." I looked at her, my little sister who had become a stranger and was now trying to become a family again. "Come to my house tomorrow night," I finally said, "and we'll talk normally. Honestly." "Thank you," Brenda whispered. After she left, I sat in the empty salon and thought, do I want to have a sister again? Am I ready to forgive what is unforgivable? Can I trust a person who has already betrayed me once? There were no answers. There were only questions and the realization that some things can only be learned over time. Over the years, I have changed. I was no longer that submissive Claire who agreed to everything for the sake of peace in the family. I learned to set boundaries, to say no, to protect myself. If Brenda wanted to be a part of my life, she would have to accept me for who I was now. And what have I become? Stronger, wiser, and a lot less patient with people who want to use me as a pillow to beat me. It's going to be a hard road, but maybe it's worth the journey.